to be the Queen's private legal counsel. I'm doing my doctorate under him. And he was also the guy who wrote the Policy and Procedure Manual for the National Criminal Courts and Courts of Justice.
Right.
And he's the, one of the two mediators for the Rule of Law Conference to establish the European Union Parliament Courts. And through circumstances, I managed to meet a member of the Royal Family who gave me access to the Royal Family document involved in Melbourne. It's been in the Melbourne Supreme Court since 1914 for safekeeping. And we went through and we found a whole bunch of documents that the Crown had destroyed, the governments here and in the Pacific had destroyed, so that they could unlawfully usurp the sovereignty of the tribes. And the Pacific Island Protection Act, we first started talking about it 7 years ago. No one wanted to know about it. And we kept pushing it. And the case that Michael was talking about in South Australia that's going to the High Court, and the other 5 cases that I'm running. 2 of them are my cousins, one is myself, one is my uncle, and another is a lady from Central Queensland. We also, in December, we had the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of New South Wales walk out of court on a matter that related to a mortgage over a $1.7 million mortgage on a property, that the mortgagee was unable to prove that they had mortgaged an interest in the land, because what Australians don't know is when they buy a lot in a DP, they buy the location of title, which is the lot, in a deposited plan, which is a DP. Now, if you're buying the location of the title on the plan, you're buying a mark on a map. That's why Australians are called landholders, not landowners.
Yeah, right.
Because they don't own the land. The only people who own the land are the tribes. Now, in 1970, there was a resolution number 262525 that was passed on 24th of October by the 26th Full General Assembly of the UN. And there's a couple of options there for the member states like Australia. They can either have the peoples or the tribes within their boundaries or within their state claimed areas can either acquiesce and integrate with that sovereign state, or they can create their own separate sovereign state and withdraw from the member state, and the member state has to aid the decolonisation of that area as quickly as possible. Okay, but the Crown didn't tell the people here from 1970 to 1993 that it took the 23 years to put in place the mechanisms and the statutes to be able to bring in the fraudulent native title process. Okay, and they never told the tribes that the tribes had this right at law. And we've got people like Les Malazar at the UN. Like, let's have a look at this. We've got a bloke who's been government picked because he's a government stooge. On his watch, we've had highest Aboriginal amounts of Aboriginal deaths in custody. We've got more blackfellas dying in custody now than ever died in South Africa during the apartheid regime. That's how bad it is in this country. Under his watch, we had the Northern Territory intervention. Under his watch, we had the abolition of ANZI. Under his watch, we had a whole range of things that shouldn't have happened if we had a man at the UN that had a set of balls. Yeah? That's the problem. We got people like Noel Pearson, Lois O'Donoghue, Mick Dodson, all of them. Les Malazar himself yesterday, when we said to him, why don't you put this up? Why don't you just, this National Congress of Australia's First People, why don't you put that aside and stand with your people and fight for sovereignty? He said, I'll wait and see what the government does first. Right? That's the problem we got. You know? It's a small thing called testicular fortitude. And the problem is the people who are representing us don't have any. So it's time for a different tack. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the matter, the matters we're going to the High Court, we're only going to the High Court to ask one question. And that is, we're going to ask all the members of the bench, do you receive a wage, stipend or other form of income from the Crown's purse? Because if they do, they render themselves incompetent to hold jurisdiction in relation to the subject matter, because they have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, right.
Then we go to the High Court in London. We'll ask them the same question. Then we'll go to the European Humanitarian Courts, and we've already petitioned them. And we know 26 out of the 27 members of the EU are going to find in our favour in relation to a declaration that no British law can be used on our soil against us, and that includes the Constitution, which remains to this day a piece of British legislation. Yes, but that's the proper legal gist of what we're doing, and I know because I'm the guy who put the argument together.
What's your name? Do you have a card or anything?
No. But my name's McMurtrie. You can find all this information on YouTube, actually.
Do you want to follow it up as like a separate story?
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a few people who sort of don't like the way I do things because I'm pretty direct. And I don't.
Sometimes it's good to be diplomatic.
Well, sometimes it's good to be diplomatic too, but I'm direct when it's necessary and I'm diplomatic when it's necessary. Oh, you'll be following up. It's going to be the biggest story that's hit the presses for many, many years. I actually put together a thing 2 years ago called the Bro Bus, and we went around Australia and spoke to a lot of the communities, and we got about 120 of the tribes on board under a federation. And the purpose of the federation was so that as a collective we could take the Crown on in this case. And Michael has a lot of people that are running with him. So last Friday, Michael and I sat together and said, well, this is bigger than Michael, it's bigger than me. We need to do this together for the people. So I agreed that I'd run with Michael, and Michael agreed that he'd run with me, and I bring my legal team, Michael bring the people he's got, and we work together. So it will go ahead. We've already got commitments from a number of UN states that if we ask, in accord with the UN Resolution 2625/25, if we ask for their protection to keep the Crown's minions out of our territories, the United Nations is bound to bring those people in to protect us from its member state.
Yeah.
So, some interesting stuff about to go down.
Yeah, cool. Alright, well, I'll definitely follow up.
You will, one way or another, you will be, because it's going to be the largest story to hit for a long time. It's a very simple argument. It comes down to the fact that, see, when they first wrote the Constitution, Section 5126 stated that they could not make laws for people of the Aboriginal race. 127 said they couldn't count us as part of the population of the Commonwealth for any part thereof. The reason being, we were a separate, sovereign, distinct race and group of peoples, and they couldn't make laws for us because we weren't subject to their sovereignty.
So is this part of the documents that you've been digging up? Or?
Yes, yep. I can give you any of the documents you want. I can
So then those documents were kind of hidden away.
They were never meant to see the light of day again. Never ever meant to see the light of day again.
Right.
Yeah. But they have.
So that's a great confusion when you talk to the people here.
Yeah.
Because some say we shouldn't be under these laws and we don't participate, we're our own sovereign nation. And others say that it's up to those guys in the White House to fix everything.
Well, it's not up to them. It's not their prerogative. It's not their country to speak for. And you've got to remember that in 1967, when the referendum in 1967 took place, the only people who could vote in the Constitution referendum were British subjects.
Right.
And the tribes have never been British subjects. Never, ever.
Right.
So when they spoke, they didn't speak for us. Just the same as Britain can't make laws for the Chinese, and the Chinese can't make laws for us either.
No, but can you go to the United Nations like Palestine and ask for a nationhood?
No, well, we don't want to. We don't want to be a part of the United Nations because it's an absolute abomination.
Yeah.
We just want the United Nations to keep its shit kickers off our turf.
Right, but you are somehow trying to
The fact
follow international law, right?
Well, we'll follow
for
international
some reason,
law,
right?
follow international law to the point that it doesn't conflict with our tribal law. But the fact is, the United Nations is bound. We don't want anything to do with the United Nations, but the United Nations is bound to control its member states. And that's what we're saying to the UN. Control your people, please.
So then you would have a treaty with the United Nations.
Why would we want a treaty with the United
Nations? Just to tell them to keep their...
No, we don't need a treaty for that.
Yeah.
No.
You don't need one?
No. If that's your car over there and you park it on my front lawn, I don't need a treaty with you to tell it to get it off my front lawn.
Right.
And the UN has to tell its member state to get off our front lawn.
So then by your laws, you would have laws that would just say that no cars on my front lawn.
We do have laws.
So is there a constitution for... Is this the provisional government that you talked about?
Straight away you fall into the trap of...
No way.
Yeah.
You fall into the trap of assuming that everyone's got to have the same system of law as a white fella.
Yeah, I'm not so sure
we don't need a constitution. Why do we need a constitution? The constitution is a governance document for a bankrupt corporation, which is what Australia is. That's why it's got a constitution.
So then will you have any document, or what will you have?
Oh, absolutely. We're in the process now, for example, the Gibsville tribe, we're in the process now of committing all of our laws to writing so that they can be seen
documented
and understood, codified if you want.
Codified, right.
So the people can utilise those laws. But there's also a very interesting side effect to this. When the people come on board with us, what happens is that the banks have no claim over the properties because all they hold is a lien over the title, which is the Torrens title overlay, not the land, it's the lot in the DP.
Right.
So people can come to us and do a treaty with the tribe to occupy the land, right? They get the same rights they've got now with their lands, right? But they can occupy those lands. Once they come under our treaty, they can go to the bank and say, look, I'm sorry, the Crown misled you into believing that they had title over the land. You have mortgaged that. You go to the Crown to get your money. Yeah?
Just say, I don't need your title anymore. I occupy the land. I have a treaty that comes before your title.
We've actually done a case that proved that.
Yeah. But that's going to be really earth-shaking, right?
It is, isn't it?
It is very earth-shaking.
It's starting to sink
but
in
is that the best way to go? Because
yes,
in other words...
Because what that does then is that will free up the money into the economy, which will create... it will take, so, well, what caused us to go down this road to a large degree was the fact that a few years ago the Australian government gave $10 billion to the banks of taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Now, it gave it to the banks, and the banks used that money to rape and pillage families who had bought homes. Right? The banks went in, foreclosed on homes and took the homes off people. These are the same taxpayers who paid the tax money to the taxman who gave it to the bank, and the bank used it to fuck them over. Right?
Yeah.
So what in the government give the money back to the taxpayers so they could pay their mortgage to the bank, and the house would be unencumbered. We wouldn't have people living on the fucking streets.
Well, we did that in the United States. They've just given $1.5 trillion to the banks, and they foreclosed on 14 million homes.
Exactly.
So then that's 40 or 50 million people that are on the street.
Why didn't they give that money to the taxpayers to pay the banks? Like, let's face it, it's still going to the banks. The only difference is that people retain their homes.
Yeah, we should just get the mortgage free and clear. We just pay off our mortgage.
That is treason by the government.
Yeah.
They've acted against the people. They've acted in bad faith against the people. That is treason.
Well, we're talking about that in Occupy. We're trying to figure it out, but we don't really, we're very dispersed.
Need to get yourselves together.
Yeah.
Do what we're doing.
Yeah, but you guys are closer already. You've got some heritage and some traditions that pull you together.
Yeah, but so do you guys.
We've only got a heart.
Well, that's where your heritage and traditions lie.
Yeah, because our traditions are all separate. Because we're a melting pot.
See, it's like Australia. When the tribes here participate in native title, before they can go to the government to claim their lands, they have to agree that they're traditional owners, which sounds innocuous enough on the surface. But the term traditional comes from the Latin traditio, which means one who has traded his lands. So straight away, by admitting you're a traditional owner, you're telling them that you've already traded your lands. You're fucking for your start. They use all these different terms it's fraudulent conveyance of language. They use all these different terms to take advantage of us because we don't know, we don't understand, we don't comprehend. That's extrinsic fraud in itself.
I was in the chai tent and I heard her say provisional government. I got myself together. I came up here, and you're just telling me that the provisional government is something real. It's not even provisional. It is the government, right? It's getting codified and stuff like that.
Yeah, some of the tribes are further down the road than others, but they're all going down the same track.
But shouldn't all the tribes kind of have a provisional government together?
Well, that's what we're hoping to get organised over the next 2 to 3 days.
Just in 3 days.
Well, see, we've already done a trip. We've already got a shitload of people on board with the original Sovereign Tribal Federation. Right? Michael's got a lot of people in different nations around where he is, and a few other people that are happy to come in. Now, between the two of us, we put that together. We've got a vast majority of the tribes on the continent who own the lands, right, who are prepared to sit at the one table to tell this place here to plat its shit. Simple as that.
Well, have they done this in any other continent? Because Africa, because North America, because South America?
I don't think so. I don't think they've done it the way we're doing it. At all. I don't think they're doing it the way we're doing it.
No. I need some tips. Well, I've always thought that it takes a smaller country to prove what can happen.
Yeah, well, sometimes being fewer in numbers is better because you still have to disseminate the same amount of information. It just has to go into fewer pigeonholes.
Yeah, but when there gets to be so many, then there's such a force to block. Block everything, block. We only get blocked by the people who the government appoints from our mobs to do their bidding. That's the only time we get blocked. When them that are working for the government, work for the government.